Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the podcast. So, today we wanted to talk all about money, but money in the context of our business mindset towards it and also our personal finances and just our personal money mindset in general. Because I feel like as I've gotten older, I've created more of a distinction between the two and I've not kind of lumped my whole mindset towards money or my goals towards money into one. And I guess this has probably come naturally because of being an entrepreneur, being self-employed. I feel like you're a lot more in control of your money and where it goes and kind of how you deal with your money when you're living that life. So naturally, I feel like you do kind of set separate goals between that side of things and then also your personal goals with money as well. So hopefully those listening will also be able to glean something from this episode, even if you are working a corporate job, because I know even if you kind of work a salaried job, it's really good to still think about things like investing and like where you're going to take your money in the future. But Dev, is this something that you have been thinking about more so since you started the entrepreneur lifestyle, or is this something that you've always done with your money? Is like think of it in these distinct buckets of like, this is how I'm going to approach my money with like my from a business perspective and like with my salary or however, but then also I have a distinct way of dealing with my personal mindset towards money.
Everything for me, like with my money mindset, completely fell apart when I left my corporate job because I didn't quite like make the link between how closely tied my personal money mindset was to like the regularity of a 9 to 5 income. And with that, I mean that like I had completely nailed my like payday process or like my payday, the things I did when my salary came in, whether those were automatic things versus manual things, like how I thought about like investing, and also partly the reason why my money mindset fell apart is because my biggest regret in terms of the last 5 years is not thinking that I could have been an entrepreneur, because that's the whole reason I quit my job, is because I finally like had built up that confidence in myself to be like, okay, I can actually like, I don't have to build a career here in order to grow my wealth and do all these things. Like in my head, I'm a 9 to 5. When I maybe it was like 35, 40, and maybe content creation was the business, or maybe I'd saved up enough from my corporate salary, I then was going to go away and start that little ice cream shop or start that little business online. Like in my head, it was like not a now job. Like it was not a thing that was happening anytime soon. And it was only because of last year's like slight impulsivity from 75 hard and like building this confidence, I just quit. So for me, my mindset with money was like, I'm going to invest regularly every single month, grow my investment pot to like as fast as I kind of could while balancing a couple of holidays a year, keeping my costs super low by like not flat sharing, but like we had our room rented out, and just generally like keeping my life as small as I could to maximize my earnings and put them away in an asset so that they were growing over time, and then so maybe by the time I was like 35 or 40, I could start taking stuff out from that, and maybe I could have a more flexible approach to whether I have a corporate job or not then. So that was my plan. And that's a very good plan to have. And that's what I like in my personal finance content. That's generally still what I push, because quitting your job and going all in on like random little businesses in my notes app and content creation is not something the majority of people can do. Whether you have a platform or not, it takes a lot of like you need to know you want that to be able to do that. But what I didn't clock was like I didn't financially plan for that, because the big thing that I've done in terms of like my finances since I left my job is like I've actually stopped investing regularly, and I didn't realize I was going to have to do this, and probably wouldn't have had to do this if I'd maybe guaranteed some business income for a bit longer, or maybe left my corporate job with like a bigger emergency fund. But I didn't. I left with like a decent sized emergency fund, But to the point where like I decided to stop investing, thinking with the mindset of, okay, well, I'm not getting my regular salary anymore. So my contributions to like my index funds are going to either come from a lump sum once I earn enough in my business, or from a regular salary or like dividends or anything like that once I again start earning enough from my business where I can start paying myself a higher salary with time. So in my head, it just went from like, okay, these things that happen monthly have to happen on more of a like, I'll review annually basis. But the principle didn't really change. Like, I'm still going to, like, my priority is still to earn enough through my business so that I can pay myself personally enough to invest at a level that I'm still growing my index funds to a big enough pot where I could still like quote unquote retire early, in terms of like, okay, I don't need any more income coming in because my index funds have like grown to the point where I can it's not extract, it's not the word, but take money out that covers my living expenses, for example. So like the way I've approached my finances has changed, and also like my mindset's been shaken a little bit because like I have to do more things around like charging for my worth, and actually the money I get paid is going to be a direct reflection of what I think of myself, because I'm setting those rates and I'm going out and trying to find jobs and things like that. So I'm a little bit shaken by that, because that's not like, when I left my corporate job, it wasn't as high as I thought it was going to be. And that's kind of normal because I did so much free work when I was in my 9 to 5 because I was scared of charging for like myself, and like it just was something I avoided doing. And it just goes to show how regular income and stability really allows you to avoid thinking about the things you really need to think about. And those things became really apparent for me, and I can't wait to talk about them more like on my actual socials once I figure out what's going on in my head a little bit, or maybe I can do it at the same time. But I don't know if you can relate to any of that in terms of like how your approach to actual like your day-to-day financial management changed.
In a way, I'm trying to think, yeah, how I actually approached it. I think I was just in a very different situation to you because I obviously got a payout when I left. So, so my mindset was very much like when I left corporate, it wasn't on my terms, but I also had the mindset that now that this has happened, I'm going to use what I've been given and see how I can do like build whatever I've built on the side bigger, and see if I don't actually have to go back to corporate, because there was a potential that I would just go and get another job if it didn't work. So I kind of used that as a buffer, and the money that I got from my redundancy for that period of time. And then obviously I had my own emergency fund on top of that. So I felt like I had a time period where I was trialing this new lifestyle just to see it could end. Like it could have ended really badly, and it could have been like, oh, okay, I actually can't do this. I need to actually get a job that's salaried again. And that could have been the route I had to take. But then halfway through the year, I ended up setting up my content creation business. And that took off so quickly that combined with the actual content that I was already doing just meant that I didn't need to go back to corporate, and I kind of built on it from there. So I think with that in mind, my mindset or the way I approached my finances didn't change a whole lot actually, because I was still able to continue as I was pretty much, like in terms of like what I was paying for. But that also did come down to the fact that I got that extra money from the job that I was no longer in. So I had that bit of extra time to make sure that like whatever I'd built outside of work was like stable enough to then continue relying on it, and then also build more. So I didn't just end up relying on that. I also built a whole new business off the back of it. So but I really resonate with what you said about your mindset towards money. And I think what I've struggled with in the past, and I guess still now, is when you talk about charging what you're worth and like knowing your own value, because in this industry you have to kind of sell yourself in a way. Like you have to set the price for your own work. And something I've really struggled with forever is the idea of having to is the idea of having to work for your money. And I've been already proven that that's not even like the case. Like compared this past year, 2024, I didn't have a corporate job and I just solely relied on my income from my socials and stuff. I obviously did not work half as hard as I worked previously in actual corporate. Like the hours that I did, the grueling, like staying late and waking up early and being in meetings and traveling for like clients and like all the stuff that came with working in corporate and getting that salary that I got. I did not work the equivalent amount for the money that I got working on my own terms. So it was proven to me that you don't have to bust a gut to like make a good living. But I still had this mindset where I can't get good money if I don't really work for it. And I've really struggled to like try and undo that, even though it's been proven to me that it's not necessarily the case. And I think that's also what holds me back, is because I feel like I have to do loads to earn a little. And I still don't really understand why my mind works like that, because I didn't earn like a terrible salary even in corporate. So that all that time, like compared to most, I was on a good salary if you're just talking in general 9 to 5 terms. So again, that's something that I've been trying to chip away at. And I think what's helped me with like the whole, I guess, like charging for my work with social media is I have had a manager for the most of the time that I've been doing like social media work. So they are the ones that will like negotiate my rate and stuff, and that gives me a lot of security in knowing, okay, well, I'm getting what I'm worth. And I kind of have, what do you call it? What's that word?
What are you trying to say?
Delegated. Yeah. I was trying to say diverted.
I thought you were going to say dilute, which I guess makes sense. You diluted your workload.
Yeah, I was going for diverted, but it wasn't really making sense. I've delegated the thing that I feel uncomfortable about, which is in some ways a good and a bad thing. I think it was good for me to do initially because it meant that I could focus on just like building my business, and I could focus on the other important stuff, actually creating the content and keeping everything running, while not having to like stress about, oh, well, am I getting enough money for what I'm doing and all this stuff. That was taken care of. And now I feel like I'm quite comfortable that this is my full-time gig now, and I'm actually like, this is a business for me, and I need to be paid for my work. I think I would be now more comfortable, especially knowing how much I've got paid during this time. I'd be now more comfortable to kind of outreach and know what to charge for my own work if I was to do it myself. The only reason I haven't is because, like, why would I take on extras? I don't need to. Because I think what I've learned in the last year or so is that delegation is so important and underrated, especially as a business owner. And I think that's something that, I guess, as someone that is previously like quite hyper independent and feels like they have to do everything themselves, that's something that I've very much kind of knocked on its head and made sure that I'm not going to self-sabotage by trying to take on everything when I know I don't have to. So that's one thing that I kind of learned from a business perspective as well. Like, it's totally okay to do that. But with my money mindset, like personally, and like my emotional attachment to money and things like that, that's definitely a work in progress still.
Yeah, that takes so long to even like work on, even if you remove the fact that we've changed our actual career path and like the way we're even legally approaching money is different, right? But I wanted to even touch on what you said about, delegation. Even when it comes to your money mindset, like this is also something I've struggled with in terms of like understanding and also respecting my own hourly rate, because that is something you really have to get clear on once you're self-employed or you run a business. Is you really have to understand like what are the things that are worth doing monetarily for you versus not. And it comes back down to like, okay, it costs money to make money. But with my money mindset, you can, like, I definitely feel that kind of like the scarcity vibes coming in when I look at things sometimes and I'm like, oh, just be easier and cost less if I do it. And yeah, it would cost less because your hourly rate is going down. Like you're putting your hourly, you're literally reducing your own hourly rate. So it's like thinking, and Naval Ravikant, he's got like there's a video on YouTube. I actually don't know if it's a video, like an audiobook of his book, but there's basically a 3-hour video of like Naval's teachings, and he talks a lot about your hourly rate and how you can delegate based off of that. And it's a way to kind of say to yourself, well, like based off of maybe your like predicted income or like how much money you want to make, your hourly rate is based off of that. And if something is going to cost less than that for you to delegate, you have to delegate it. But I've really struggled to do that in practice because I'm literally just trying to cut costs for no reason, because I'm now operating on my own. Like I don't have the corporate salary to fall back on. Whereas when I had my corporate salary, I was just I was paying for a lot of different things, like whether it was subscriptions or just like people to edit this random video to see if like I could pay for an editor at some point. And there are definitely good ways to do that. Like if you have a corporate job, and this is very content creation specific, like if you have a corporate job and it's actually not as intense as maybe other people's corporate jobs, I feel like using income that you might be generating from your personal brand to reinvest and like cut costs and delegate is good. But that's because, and that's what I kind of meant at the beginning of the episode when I said your corporate job sometimes allows you to be avoidant about certain aspects about money mindset. Because if you were reinvesting money from your personal brand into maybe editing or services, it's because mentally you're like, well, it's fine because I've got my corporate salary. So like, I don't have to think about my hourly rate, or I don't have to think about the fact that I'm reducing it, or, you know, like not charging my worth in this because I've actually got my salary to cover me anyway. So I can just charge lower, you know? So it's like trying to weed out what are you avoiding by the way that you're earning and spending your money. Because I feel like the clues are all there. Like you don't have to figure much out when it comes to your brain and how you work. You leave a little trail, and I think finances leave the biggest trail. Like even when you remove the business aspect and like both of us being self-employed, like the one thing I always say that you should do in terms of like fixing your money mindset is like tracking your transactions. And you know what's ironic? Since I left my job, I have not been tracking my transactions. And that's been like a really active thing in my mind. Like every month that's been since I left my job, in my head I've been like, didn't track this month. And like I'm really used to doing it. So like I'm really aware of the fact that I'm not doing it, but I'm avoiding doing it because in my head I'm like, okay, I need to like sort my business finances out. I need to sort my own salary out, and then understand that, okay, on a regular basis I can put this and this away every month, because I don't have that like monthly pattern anymore. I have this like this sum of money and my spending, and I'm like, how do I align all of this? So it's really hard to even like adjust on that basis for like a change in your financial behavior as well. But I don't know, how have you gone about like your actual, like do you budget still, or have you kind of left it?
I do in a way. I guess it's a bit weirder now because like I have a business account, so a lot of the things like expenses will come through that, and I don't really budget that. I'm kind of like, well, if I need to spend it on the business, I'll just do it.
Yeah, that's such a good point.
So I
Yeah.
don't.
What about your personal, like do you still budget personally, or are you kind of like very driven in terms of I am just focusing on how the business is working right now, and I'm just gonna cover my personal expenses with like money? Because I think that's what I'm doing in terms of like, well, probably what I will do in terms of like transaction tracking and budgeting is like I'll actually do a bit more analysis now on like the business stuff and less so for my personal stuff, because in my head I'm like, well, all of my activity now is business related, so I don't really need to control like how much I'm spending on like holidays or like clothes and stuff, because I'm literally just not doing all that stuff anymore.
Yeah. Do you know what? It's so funny that you say that, because I literally like this Sunday I did my like trying to plan out my week this week, and you listen to one of the actual like things on my list, because I write the to-do list first of everything I want to get done, and then I put it into my calendar. And one of them literally says, figure out personal budget.
Yeah.
Because I have not really done it in a while, probably since I had my full-time job, because like you said, you don't just get a set amount of money every month like you used to. It's like you'll just get a chunk and then you'll get another chunk, but then you'll obviously have expenses that will come straight out of that, and it's just so hard to manage money in that way just because I'm not used to it. And even a year on, I'm still not used to not having this like consistent exact same amount every single month. And I think that's what kind of throws me a little bit with the budgeting. But yeah, that's something I actually really want to hone in on this year, because I think now that I've kind of found my feet with this whole working on my own terms in general, and I've been very much focused on like my schedule and like how much time I'm giving to things, and obviously setting up a new business altogether, I think everything else kind of went out the window, and I wasn't really I don't know, I just wasn't really thinking about my budget and stuff. I was just focusing on what needs to be done, and the nice to haves were kind of like, I'll think about that later, and then they never came. um but yeah, it is a weird world. I think, especially when you were talking about the hourly rate things, it's so subjective when it comes to actually putting a price on you and what you're worth. But I think through starting the wedding content, that's something that in the past 6 months, I guess I've been doing that. I've really learned quite quickly how to get rid of that scarcity mindset in the context of, you know, people pay you for your time or what you're worth. Because I think at the start, I remember when I first started that business, I was like, oh, what do I price things? Because if I price it too high, no one's going to buy for me and no one's going to want my service. And then I don't want to take too much money from people when I'm new and I know what I'm doing, but do I know what I'm doing? And that it was just so many like things. I was just so self-conscious of everything and like how much I was charging. And now I'm in a place where, and I guess granted it comes with experience and it comes with having that portfolio proof and me actually like having good feedback from clients and like knowing I'm good at the job and knowing that I give good quality results, that now I'm in a position where I have a price. If you don't want to pay for it, great, see you later, go find someone else that, you know, is less pricey, lower quality, whatever. But I will stick to that now, and I'm very confident in knowing that it's a reasonable price and I'm happy to work based on that. Like I think I got into a place where I had to tell myself, am I happy to actually go and spend all day working for this amount of money? And do I genuinely think I'm worth that amount of money? And if not, then I need to raise my prices. Like, you do know in your gut when you're working for yourself, you know if you're happy to work for that amount of money, and you will feel right or wrong to you. But it's then the question is, what do you do about that? Do you just sit in that bit of resentment, feeling like, oh, I'm working too much for the money I'm earning? Or do you actually take that bold step and be like, no, I'm going to charge a bit more, and I'm going to not allow that lack mindset to come into play where I feel like, oh, now I'm going to get less clients and less money in because of the increase in price. I had to stand firm on the idea that I will attract the kind of clients that I'm looking for, the people that aren't, you know, trying to get a bargain and then still complain about the service anyway. And there's all types of people that you come into contact with when you start operating from a certain mindset as well. As what I've realized is that if you're in that lack mindset and scarcity mindset, you will end up attracting clients that are like the penny pinchers and the people that, you know, want to cut you on your prices, but then are going to be really picky with what you have to offer, and just there's people that are more difficult than others, and I feel like you'll end up attracting the more difficult people the more you are more unsure and like not confident in your own abilities and your own value. So that's what I've learned as well, is just you have to undo that mindset in order to have an easier life in general, an easier experience in business across the board. Like, it all comes back to that attracting, that vibration kind of conversation of like, you attract what you are. So even in the terms of like what kind of clients you attract, because even like when it comes to the brands and stuff, there can be very difficult brands to work with. There can be people that really, even from a, you know, like personal brand perspective, me doing my own content creation aside from the wedding stuff, there's been brands that I've worked with that are that have like really cut my rate down, and then still been ridiculous in terms of like the feedback and like me wanting to like redo stuff, or like not being happy with, I don't know, a caption or wording, or like being really, really nitpicky on things when they already have gotten such a huge discount on the rate itself. And I'm just like, why am I even working with you? Like, I didn't need this hassle. Like, I would rather do without. And I think I've kind of learned from that as well, is like, if you allow yourself to be put in these situations where you're already cutting yourself and your own value in half, and then you're, by virtue of that, you're dealing with more difficult people, because those types of people are the ones that are going to give you more headache. In business, it's not worth it. Stand your ground on your value and like what you know you offer, and you will attract people that actually see the value in that. And if they come and they don't see the value, then that's a good time to wave them out the door. Like, you don't try and like bring them back in and, you know, like start cutting your prices and trying to reel people like that back in. It's not good feng shui.
Yeah.
I don't know what other word to use, so I just use
vibes.
that.
Yeah. I like that. No, but it's so true. It's like, and that applies to everything in life, right? Like you literally get back what you put out or put in. Yeah. And you're so right about like, you have to really believe in yourself and your rates. And I honestly think just using the internet as an example of the fact that like anything in this world is possible is a good way to go, because like I think me and Sam are talking about this in terms of like, I feel like I'm really desensitized to pricing and money these days because of my negotiation process these days, because like I am really strict on like how many brand deals I will do in terms of like per month, and also how much I will charge for those things, purely because I put a lot of time and effort into branded work that I'm not willing to put that time and effort into like a lower pay. Because for me, I'm like, you're getting all of my equipment, my brain, which I really believe is like, sometimes my ideas are like, yeah, really good. And that's purely from like building the confidence up in the last few years, because I didn't think like this before. And like knowing that like the thing I produce is going to be really different from someone else. And then following like little guidelines around like, well, you offer over and above stuff. So like if someone pays me for like one video, I'll give them back a video with like an alternative beginning or ending, because it's like a little icing on the cake. That's like, you know, it's like I'm not just doing the bare minimum. And so me knowing that like I do all of these things means that like I feel good about the fact that I can turn away things that don't meet that requirement like on a monetary basis. And a few months ago I didn't have to turn it down, but I turned down quite a cool opportunity to like, it was probably going to be my first paid like trip abroad to work with a company and like host and present and stuff like that. And I turned it down just purely because the rate for the amount of work that I would have done for that trip. The rate was like not great, and it was still good. It just wasn't great. And I felt so weird about turning it down, because I was like, who do I think I am? Like who am I cosplaying right now? Because this is a really cool opportunity and I could meet cool people through the opportunity. But in my head, I was just like, I'll come home from that trip and feel like, is this all I'm invoicing for? So I turned it down. And in my mind, every time I turn stuff like that down, or like something doesn't go ahead because either the pricing or like the work involved just didn't meet my like requirements, in my head, I always try to tell myself like something double or triple the size of this opportunity is coming my way, because now I've made the space for it. And like I really try to like say that to myself, and honestly stuff like that has happened. Like yeah, oh my god, I've just realized an opportunity I didn't even turn down, it just never worked out. Another version of it I've like signed the contract for and I'm doing in a few weeks, and it's literally the same monetary amount. That's crazy. That's like
What?
months apart.
Well, like a better thing, or
A better thing in terms of like it's gonna take me a lot less time to do,
yeah,
but it's the exact same money. That's actually crazy. It's
that's so
literally the exact same money.
that's true though. What you say, I think I still need to learn that lesson actually, and when it comes to like branded stuff on my personal page, I think I've got quite good at it with my business of like setting my value, but sometimes, especially when like gifted opportunities arise.
I don't take them.
Well, yeah, I think sometimes I don't know, that's what I mean in my head. I get a bit confused or scared to ask for money if it's like started off with the value is in what you're getting.
I guess it depends on the thing, right? Because like
Yeah,
with the gifted stuff, I don't take on anything where they want me to create content,
yeah,
because that's so much that's
effort.
so much work and labor, and you charge a fee for that anyway. So I always just try to like negotiate them into it, and if they don't, then I just say like I'm happy to receive that, but I won't be making content on it.
Yeah. I think this is maybe 2025 is my era of being a negotiator because I do want to do more stuff like independently a little bit. I mean, I do still stand by the delegation aspect, but I do think there's still skills that I could benefit just having regardless of that. And if I know that just being someone in business, you have to be good at negotiating and like selling yourself or just that side of things, I think is always a good thing to to have a strong skill in. And I don't think I'm there because I've always avoided it and not wanted to take that on. And I think that's definitely something that I want to be, I don't know, just more confident in doing, like being able to do that irrespective of like what it is that I'm providing someone. Because I think, like I said, I've done it in the business, because I feel like it's quite different. Like I really see the clear value in what I'm providing with that. But when it comes to like my social medias, I think it does stem from the fact that it started as a hobby, and sometimes I can't shake that feeling of this is fun. Like,
Yeah.
so why am I getting paid, even though it's a business? But I really struggle with it, depending on what it is. Of course, if someone's like sending me a product and they want me to like promote it, I'm gonna be like, yeah, pay me. But it just depending on the value that someone else is giving me, sometimes I'm just like, oh, okay, I'll do it. That's fine. But then I'm like, actually, no, I shouldn't have done that because I'm worth more than that. But it's easy to forget when it's something that you haven't always seen as a business. And because I've seen my wedding content creation from the beginning as a business, that is like a service I'm providing in exchange for money, always, that I don't know, I've separated them in my head quite a lot, but I feel like I need to, especially as someone that literally does it full time now, I need to get more used to being okay with negotiating and I don't know, like kind of like what you said, actually turning around and being like, oh, well, I'm happy to do this, but for a fee, or just put something forward of my own rather than just accepting what comes to me, or being afraid of, because I think what happens is I get afraid of them saying no, and then I'm like, oh, maybe I should have just taken it then. But then I haven't given them a chance to say no, which is the worst part, because it's like they could have actually said yeah. So yeah, that's something to work on.
It's
Yeah.
more you just need more confidence, but yeah, you should definitely maybe like you could like ask your management, be like, can I negotiate one deal a month? I need some practice.
Oh God. Yeah, it's a scary world that I don't know why it intimidates me so much. It has always.
No, it's one of the worst processes, I think, for people like us, because like I hate it, and like I'm not gonna lie, I don't do all of it myself. Sam helps me,
Yeah.
and like he's done like cool negotiation courses and stuff with his work, and he's
Really?
constantly negotiating because he's like in sales essentially. So honestly, sometimes when I'm like, this has just come through and I need help, and he'll just kind of do it for me. And
That's handy.
he's got a few methods, which is quite good. Maybe we could talk about them in another episode on like maybe specific like
Yeah.
how to negotiate, because he's quite good with like little phrases and like ways you actually structure the email that like I don't know, allows you to have like an upper hand and things like that. But for me, the bottom line is just like you said, that feeling of like, when I complete this work, am I going to feel like it was worth it? And then for me, I just have to remind myself that like, if it's not going to feel worth it, it doesn't matter if they reject it, because that just means I don't have to do it.
Yeah, for sure. No, that sounds good. I definitely need to get myself on one of those negotiation courses.
Yeah, you could do a course.
There must
to
be
be fair.
something online. Yeah, I think, yeah, I'm going to try that this year, because we're all about improving and gaining new
Reinvesting.
skills. Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. Cool. Well, that's definitely a big takeaway I've taken from this episode, and hopefully anyone listening has maybe been inspired by this topic. It is a weird world, kind of jumping into entrepreneurship and dealing with your personal mindset towards money and the things that you've been avoiding all this time, if you have been avoiding certain things to do with your money mindset, from a business perspective as well. Those things will shine through. But hopefully you don't feel alone if you have experienced that yourself, now that you've heard us kind of talk through it as well, and the things that we've kind of dealt with along the way. If you have enjoyed this episode, make sure you give it a thumbs up and let us know if you're watching us on YouTube, and also be sure to give us some feedback and a rating over on Apple Podcasts or Spotify if you're listening over on there. And with that being said, we'll catch you guys in the next episode. Bye.
Bye.